Thank you so much for watching this particular broadcast. Welcome to Ubuntu channel. Now, I am your host, Lance Sanibanda, taking you through the 55 minutes on this special program. Now, reason why we had to bring to you a very special program is because we want to talk about women in leadership. All right, so women in leadership, we get to bring to you women that are into leadership, women that have taken up leadership roles, and then we get just to talk about their experience in the leadership roles. We get to profile them right here on this very show. Like I said, I am your host, Lance Sani Banda. Good evening once again. Now, my guest this particular evening is Namute. Namute, hi, how are you doing today?
I'm okay. How are you?
I am doing fine, thank you.
Okay,
All
it's a
right,
good thing to
so
be here.
Thank you. Now, a quick one. Let's get to quickly profile Namute before we get into women in leadership. If
Okay.
people see Namute or they hear the name Janet Namute, what encompasses this person?
Okay. Thank you very much for that. It's rare that people give us the privilege to profile yourself. I want to recommend you for that one. So when people hear Namute, I actually mentioned that I love to be referred to as Namute, though that is my second name. So just a brief part about my name. Namute means somebody that's patient. So that's Mambwe. And I love to be identified as somebody that is patient. So Namute is a young lawyer, a young female lawyer in Zambia. Apart from that, I'm the executive director for Women in Governance Zambia, which focuses mostly on women participation in governance. So we take keen interest in participating in different levels of leadership, apart from just with the government sector, but we look into churches and in all other areas as long as it has to do with leadership and participation. So apart from that, I'm a full-time lawyer, so I do work for a law firm. Apart from that, I'm mostly focused on the NGO sector. I believe so much in Go number 17 with the SDGs, which is partnership, and obviously Go number 16, which talks about justice and peace. So that is basically Namute. I stand on the Sustainable Development Goals and as well inclusion of women at all sectors, not only government, but at all sectors in general. So that's a brief profile about Namute.
Well, thank you so much for that brief profile. Despite it being brief, at least it's rich in content. One may tell that you have somebody that is focused and goal oriented.
Yeah.
Let's come back to women in governance or women in leadership.
Mhm.
Um, what is this organization all about? Uh, What exactly do you look at? What do you want to achieve? And how do you hope to achieve the goals that you have set?
Okay, thank you very much. So, Women in Governance Zambia basically came about with a couple of other colleagues, most of them who are almost in the same profession as I am. So, our focus area basically is to look at certain laws that we have in Zambia, certain acts that speak on women and participation. But it does not, most of the times when people look at the name Women in Governance Zambia, their first thought is it's the only inclusion of the women, but that is not what we're trying to get at. We're trying to get at both genders, but at the same time ensuring that women are accorded an opportunity to participate. So Women in Governance Zambia does not only deal with participation, but we also look at sexual reproductive health because we believe for a woman to be able to stand and participate at different platforms, apart from just government sectors, apart from just church sectors, we have young children, young girls that are in school and unfortunately do not know much about sexual reproductive health, both from their school sector and also from the home sector, taking into consideration the cultural barriers that have been placed in our homes, being unable to speak to our parents about different issues to do with sexual reproductive health. So that's what Women in Governance Zambia now comes in to bridge the gap, to be able to tell the girl child on how best they can access sexual reproductive health. And apart from focusing on the grassroots, which are children, Women in Governance Zambia also looks to include women that are incarcerated in various prisons that we have. So because now currently we know that prisoners are able to vote, but there is still a gap in also the inmates understanding how best they can participate in governance, even though they are incarcerated. Remember, even those people that are in prisons and are sentenced to life are still able to vote. But then Women in Governance Zambia comes in to bridge the gap in telling them the importance of them still voting, even if they have been imprisoned for the rest of their life. So that is basically what Women in Governance Zambia does, or is. That's what we want to bridge. We want to bridge the gap. And apart from that, also we have certain acts like the Gender Act, which has a lot of gaps. We have other acts as well that have been enacted for quite some time, and looking at it, the challenges that we were facing probably before independence are not the same challenges that we're facing now. For example, we have the NYDC Act, which was enacted in 1986, which is quite a long time looking at the challenges that we have now. So we have certain words that have been used in the act, such as chairman, which is a grammatical error, because looking at it now, even a woman can be appointed as a chairperson. So what we lobby for are corrections to do with the acts that we are currently using now, and we're using the platform that Women in Governance Zambia has given us to be able to make submissions to Parliament and any other necessary platforms in order to also align the works that we're doing with the laws that are already in existence in Zambia. So that's what Women in Governance Zambia does.
Mm. All right. Thank you so much. Now, at least about 4 or 5 uh, key sectors or pointers that one would get from what Women in Governance Zambia wants to do or what it hopes to achieve. But in better understanding, I think let's get to break them down one by one, or maybe get to
Okay.
understand them in their singleness, and then maybe as a whole we can come summarize it up in that way. You talked about
Okay.
the NYDC Act. One might be wondering, a layman like me that probably has never even seen a constitution from birth up to now would be wondering, what is this NYDC Act?
Okay. All right. So the NYDC Act, which is the National Youth Development Council Act, so that is the act, I should say, that governs most of the youth activities that we have. It's more of our Bible, our do's and don'ts as organizations that are operating in Zambia. So the NYDC Act in itself, just breaking it down a bit for the people that are unable to understand it. So the NYDC Act was enacted in 1986 and was only amended once in 1990. I think that was 94. So it's been in existence for more than 36 years now. And this act contains certain provisions that are not favorable for the now youths that we have. So I'll make a quick reference to I think that should be section 27 of the NYDC Act. So the act itself has given so much authority to the Minister of Youth and Sport to be able to appoint the members of the council. So this act has provided so much authority being given to the minister without being questioned, because in itself there is also another provision in the act that talks about the minister. If you are not happy with the decision that the minister has made, you cannot appeal to anybody else apart from himself. So it does not make sense to a certain extent, because how can we have you want to go against a decision that the minister has made, but he's the same person you're going to complain to? So those are some of the provisions that are in the NYDC Act. So we were recently revealing the NYDC Act, and we made our submissions to Parliament. And some of our submissions that we gave to the Parliament committee were that the minister should have somebody he reports to, or should have somebody that should hold him accountable even for the decisions that he makes. So that can only happen if we change the NYDC Act in itself, because words alone cannot be compared to what the law says, because obviously we know that the law is the final say. So the only way that we can try realign what this act or what the NYDC Act is, the gaps that are in the NYDC Act, is by starting from the root cause itself, which is Parliament, by trying to amend and change this particular act. So, yeah, in a nutshell, that's what NYDC Act is all about.
Okay, this is an act that binds activities of the youths in this
Yes,
country,
exactly.
and
Mm-hmm.
I think you've pointed one, what would say a lacuna
Mm-hmm.
in law language, which
Yeah,
is there
perfect.
where the minister, thank you, where the Minister of Youth and Sports Development is the one that appoints members of the council. Is that the only lacuna which is in this act? Or maybe there are also many others that should be addressed, and youths in particular should get interested in reading this act to find out what actually works better for them and what seems to be of a bad hitch, if I can use that word.
Okay, all right, thank you. It's a good thing that we have been, as women in governance Zambia, have been given this opportunity to come through on this platform and speak more, because that is one of the main projects that we are carrying out as an organization, to advocate now for these new provisions we want to include in the act. So I'll highlight, I think, two or three pertinent issues that are in the act that needs to be spoken against. So one of the this one is a very funny one, yeah. One of the provisions that are in the act are that if a member of the council working for the council has made a mistake or has done something wrong, as long as they have done it out of a goodwill or good faith, then they are not supposed to be held accountable for it. So that in itself, we find it as a very, very big lacuna, because even as well as we are employed ourselves, as long as you make a mistake, you're supposed to be answerable for it, isn't it? Even with different sectors that we have. So that already is a very big gap that the act provides. So if a member of the council, for example, decides to borrow money on behalf of the council and says, well, I thought it would work, but it has not worked, thank you very much. It ends there. He cannot be taken anywhere for that. He's immune. So the member's immunity has not been given a limit. So that in itself is a very, very huge gap. And apart from that, the other provision that we're looking at, the minister is the one that appoints all the members of the council, and he's the one that appoints the chairperson and the vice chairperson as well. And he is the person that stipulates how much money the members of the council should be given. So that in itself, as you can see, it has given him too much authority. He can easily, not to get words out there, but he can easily appoint one of his colleagues and stipulate, oh, he's my friend. I'm going to give him this amount of money because that's what I want to do. And he cannot be questioned about it. So that in itself is also a very, very huge gap. So we are actually lobbying that the council should be answerable to the minister, but if the minister is unable or is the one who is in the wrong, these matters should be taken to the High Court, because it becomes pointless for me to go against a decision of the minister, because he's the high authority in regards to youth issues. So what we are lobbying for, and what we also advocated to the committee, the parliamentary committee, is that we should have a hierarchy, and the end result should be the High Court to make a final decision. So those are some of the issues that we actually found that we're uncertain in the act. And apart from that, a very, very important one was organization regulations. So the act does not state how organizations or cooperatives now that are being, and I'm sure you've seen with the CDF that is coming, a lot of young
Mhm.
persons are opening cooperatives, they're opening organizations so as to partake of the CDF. So the act in itself has not also stipulated how these organizations should operate, what it only says is that they can register organizations and it ends there. So I can register an organization today and call it even Women in Governance Zambia, and I will do my activities. And because NYDC has not given us regulations or guidelines on how we should operate. So that in itself is a huge gap because it's opening a pool of many problems. Seeing that now NYDC is registering youth organizations, and it's very easy. You can register your youth organization within 4 days. You have your certificate and you've paid the little monies involved. But then what happens afterwards? It's creating a problem that might be difficult to control in the near future because now we are opening organizations and we do not know how we should conduct ourselves. So that in itself, the NYDC Act is supposed to provide, which currently it does not, because looking at it being enacted in 1987, that's a long time. A lot of things have happened during the time. So those are just some of the pertinent issues that are in our NYDC Act. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for that. And obviously, we'll take time to look at this act and see also maybe as a youth what needs to be amended
Mm-hmm.
in this same act. But has it ever, or have you ever, as women in governance, have you ever thought about it that you also get to push for maybe the minister who looks at the affairs of the youths should also be a youth because they will be able to understand what a youth requires at that particular time.
Oh, yes. Because that is also one thing that we're looking at, especially looking at the act in itself. Because currently, funny thing is that the act has not even provided the qualifications for somebody to be appointed to be a member of the council, which is very sad. We can have members of the council that are 80 years and above, and none of them are youths, and that will be okay because there's no law that governs that. So it's one of the issues that we also provided for in our submissions, that the members of the council should be a youth or should contain youths. Majority of it should be youths because that in itself, as I'm sure as we all know, you cannot speak for the youth when you're not a youth yourself. Or and this is a slogan that we always go with women in governance Zambia. Nothing for the youth without the youth, which only makes sense. So yes, we definitely, and I hope I will be able to share our the documents that we did submit. It would be good if you had a copy, and as well you could be able to share it even with the other young persons, because we noticed that these are issues that affect us, the young people, and we're not making decisions ourselves. It's very important that we do take time to. It's a very summarized document. We made it as easy as possible for anybody to be able to read through.
As Ubuntu channel, we'll be very grateful to receive those documents and see to it or make it our best interest to publish them on this media house so that we have an informed youth out there.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Perfect.
moving on. In talking about the NYDC Act, you mentioned something which is very cardinal and something which is very pertinent. The minister can decide to appoint whoever he feels like, uh, may even decide to appoint somebody who is a friend in the council because he
Very
has
true.
the ultimate power. But moving away from the act, let's talk about government appointments. Most of the times we have seen different governments that have come and gone, appointing people not on merit, but appointing because this one has been with me for a longest time. This one
Mm-hmm.
helped me with financial when I had financial difficulties. This one because he's a relative,
Mm-hmm.
they get appointments. How do you look at this? How can we fight this virus?
Okay. Um, as a person coming from a woman's background, women in governance, Zambia, we mostly focus on the ratio of appointment for women. So we always make reference to Luanda, because Luanda has the largest female members of parliament, and also even in regards with the cabinet. So we always make reference to women. So this, first of all, this is something that can be done. It is something that Zambians are capable of doing. This is why, even as we speak about appointments, it's a very important issue for women in governance Zambia, because what we lobby for is for the community to be able to trust to vote women into power. I would love this Ubuntu channel to actually follow us through on the activity we'll be having in Chawama month and this particular month, and because we strategically pointed out this community because it has a female MP and it has female councillors in that ward. So what we're trying to tell the community is that it is all right to vote for a woman into power, because that is a person that is not an MP cannot be appointed as a minister to sit in cabinet unless there are those is it 7 or 11 ministers that are appointed without portfolio. So it starts from the community itself in us being able to vote for women into power, then the government positions come in. But as well, even when women are given, it's so sad that certain women are given good positions, good governmental positions, but they do not take advantage of it. Most of the women that we have in parliament, sorry to say this, are mostly focused on making themselves look beautiful, which is a sad thing, and hoping
They are
things
always
do
on a
change.
beauty contest.
On a beauty contest, that is the saddest thing that you can see in parliament. But we have organizations such as the women's lobby, we have SILA, that provides data for women MPs to be able to give in parliament. But what do we see? Most women do not want to take interest in actually getting this data from SILA or from women's lobby, because we do research and we give these particular female MPs to be able to deliver better in parliament. So it starts with us, the women themselves. As much as we are advocating for women to be given government positions, I also advocate for getting quality people to actually be able to deliver. Because it would be quite pointless if we give women certain positions and they are unable to deliver or they are unable to work towards it. But with currently only having three members in cabinet in itself, that for me does not sit well. Looking at the promises that the current government actually did sign certain memorandums with different organizations in order to ensure that women have been accorded an opportunity to be part of the highest decision making body to me, which is cabinet. Because if we talk about other appointments, yes, they will be there, but the final say comes from cabinet. And in itself, we do not want to have gender oriented ministries such as the Ministry of Community Development, which has been turned into a feminine ministerial positions. I was glad to see our Minister of Health, who is a female as well. But and I'm sure if we still had our ministry of gender, we would have seen a woman still taking up that position. So it is the narrative that we want this new dawn to be able to change as well, even as we move towards the better years to come. I think on appointments, it starts from there. What efforts are women putting in order to prepare themselves for certain activities or for certain appointments that we will be receiving?
Hmm. All right, Ruben. Good evening. Good to see you this evening. How are you doing?
I'm fine in you, Lance. Good to see you too.
I am doing fine. Namute Ruben is my co-host, so shortly he will be the one taking you on in questions. But before that, let's get to do a follow-up. Yes, the president always has the privilege of appointing 8 MPs, whom he appoints as ministers. So he has that window, and from the 8. Um, it, yeah, okay, maybe let me build up like this. If the communities, different constituencies, did not decide to vote for female folks as their member of parliament, don't you think the president could have equalized that number through the 8 appointments that he gets to nominate members of parliament in the House who hold a ministerial position. Don't you think he would have done that?
Okay. Yes, he's actually mandated to do that. And this is where we see that it's a bit difficult to speak about, because when you look at the nominations, or when you look at the ministers that can be appointed without portfolio, the constitution in itself, which is the highest law of the land, it should be article 187, if I'm not mistaken, or 127, which actually stipulates that the appointments made by the president should contain the marginalized community. So that in itself, when we're talking about the marginalized community, we're mostly focused on two communities. So that is the persons living with disability and the women. But when you look at most of the previous presidents that have been accorded an opportunity to give the nominated ministers, they do not take that particular article into consideration. And when we look at our constitution, the constitution is the highest law of the land. So already that is what women in governance Zambia advocates for, because all, whether you're a minister, or whether you're a president or you're not a president, you're still supposed to be answerable to the constitution, because that is what governs us. And looking at the fact that the president, even with his persons that he put into those ministerial positions, none of them were persons living with disabilities, and which I think as a country we should be heading towards, because we have signed a lot of MOUs in regards with persons living with disabilities. We have an act that actually speaks to a person living with disabilities, which is the law that we have. And in itself, I think in the preamble of the act, it speaks to being accorded an opportunity to be members of parliament. The only disadvantage comes in that I noticed that even with the prior program, there was a part which talked about political violence. So that's where we also need to focus mostly on, because it's difficult for persons with disability to be able to take part in governance and take part in elections, being candidate for elections, because even their way of campaigning is a bit difficult in terms of of movements, in terms of the political violence themselves. They'll find themselves at places where riots will break out and they need to probably run for safety, and because of their form of disability, that is not working. So the best thing that the government can do in order to ensure that they actually do take part in deliberations of parliament is taking the route of the provision that gives the president to be able to appoint ministers without portfolio. Yeah.
All right. Before we get into political violence and equality, I think that's where Ruben will come in. I still have an interest with government appointments and maybe the political landscape the way it is in Zambia. Many times, females or the women folk will be very skeptical in joining politics because they have been given a tag. So if you are a female politician and you make it in high ranks, such that you are even appointed as a cabinet minister, people always speculate that you must be somebody that offered sexual pleasure to the appointing authorities or to somebody for you to get into that position. That tag has been put across the women folk that take part into politics. Women have been insulted left, right, and center when they take part into politics. This has seen a number of women participating or wanting to participate in politics deteriorating because they don't want to be called names. They don't want to be put as those people that give sexual pleasures to people for them to get appointed. What is your organization doing about this to end such thinking from people and obviously to combat this whole issue, to see to it that many women folk get to take part into politics and the political discourse in this country?
Okay. Thank you so much for that specific question, because it's a very emotional question, for me, especially being an executive director for an organization and being a female. So, what Women in Governance Zambia does in order to ensure that women um, do not get stigmatized, we actually
Uh, okay,
do
Ruben,
not feel
are you? Sorry, Namote. It seems like your internet is dragging. Are you here with us now? Ruben?
Yes, Lance, I can get you loud and clear. Seems our guest is having a bit of a challenge.
Definitely. So it seems like our guest is having a bit of some challenge with the internet right there. But remember that you can be part of the program by coming through via the comments box, as well as coming through into the studio, as the studio link will be shared with you shortly in the comments. This is a special interview. We are featuring Janet Namute, who is the executive director for Women in Governance Zambia. Now, this particular evening, we are talking about women in leadership because we want to understand the challenges that they go through. We want to understand reasons why not so many women are into leadership or the hustle and bustle that goes around for them to reach this leadership role or this leadership stage. So be part of the program. Come through via the comments box. Namote, are you here now? Good evening. All right, we still seem to be having some challenges right there. I think let's go for a very short break. Let's go for a very short break. And then when we come back, obviously, we get to continue with the program. We would have dealt with the challenges that our guest is facing this evening. Now, remember, on the topic of discussion, we have highlighted points that we'll be able to talk about, which is one is the NYDC Act. We have already tackled it, but for some of you that did not tune in by then, so why DC? Ruben, it stands for National Youth Development Committee.
Right.
Yes, I know you and I had a serious chat.
Yeah, exactly. We had a serious chat over that one. It's unfortunately that our guest uh, seems to have a bit of a challenge, but um, one of the issues that I have with this topic for today, Lance, is that most people, we concentrate on 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 legislation, as in the parliament, and also concentrate on the executive part. But I don't know why people don't talk about the judiciary. Are we comfortable there in terms of women in getting positions under judiciary? Remember, government is has got three arms: the judiciary, the legislature, which is parliament, and also executive. Most of the time, or most of the advocates, they usually concentrate on these two, which is parliament and executive.
Mhm. Well, so let's go on a short break as our technical team gets to deal with the challenge that we are facing, and then we'll be back after a few minutes. Director, can we go on a break? Well, Ruben, it seems like we are still here. So let's get, maybe just in briefing you. So the NYDC Act
Yeah.
is an act that was formed apparently in the 1980s. All right, our guest is back. Namote, hi. Good to see you again. Mm. Okay, director, can we go on a break? Let's go on a break and then we come back later.
omuntu ninshira iyo abantu basenderamu ifyo omuntu afiire okuba n'efyo afiire okukita n'efyo afiire okwikaliramu ubuntu.
All right. Thank you so much for still staying with us. You are watching the special broadcast or a special interview that we have for you this particular evening. Remember that you can invite your friends to like Ubuntu channel on Facebook, to subscribe to our YouTube channel, which is Ubuntu Channel Zambia, as well as also on Twitter. You can get to follow us and we will follow you back. Now, this is a special interview where we are hosting. All right, yeah. So where we are hosting NAMUTE Janet, who is the executive director for Women in Governance Zambia. Now, this is an NGO that focuses on seeing to it that women get a fair share in leadership roles in governance, key governance roles, as well as get to advocate for sexual reproduction health, get to advocate for more women to participate in governance issues, to participate in leadership roles, to also participate in Zambia's political emancipation. And of course, we'll be able to have her shortly. Ruben, yes, you were talking about. In fact, you asked a question to say, are we okay with the appointments at the judiciary,
Yes.
owing to the fact that mostly we just talk about legislature as well as the executive, but we don't talk about the judiciary. Where exactly would you want us to talk about? Because I think the chief, here we're talking about the Chief Justice, Solicitor General, if I'm not mistaken, and judges as well.
Not just judges. Also, we need to talk about the. Remember that we now have resident judges. Okay, on judges, yes, resident judges that have been sent to provinces. Most of the names that I've seen there, they're of the male
Yeah.
folks. I've not seen, I've not seen the female folks. Also, we want to see the. Okay, anyway, we are okay with the DPP, at least on the DPP part. She's female. That's great. I don't know about the national prosecution. The actual lawyers, how many she has under her, how many are female. Most, if you follow the news very well in the courts, most of the names that we see coming up of the people that are prosecuting cases, mostly they are male. If we look at the Solicitor General, yes, the Attorney General as well, look at that combination, they are all male. I don't know if we've ever had a female Attorney General in Zambia, but from the time I've followed the presidential appointments, I've never seen any female Attorney General. I think it would be something great to see, Lance. Imagine seeing a female Attorney General.
Well, it will be great. It will be awesome and amazing at the same time. So we seem to continue having problems with our guests. Internet can be something else at times. But however, uh, we continue getting your comments. We continue getting your views. We continue as well as getting your questions so that perhaps they can get answered right here, or your burning issue that you have, especially as far as women in leadership is concerned. We continue getting those, and we appreciate the fact that you are a part of this program. But what you can do is get to share this broadcast so that it can reach to your loved ones, it can reach to your family, it can reach to your neighbors, so that they also get to understand what role women in governance Zambia has, and of course, talking about the different things or the different goals that they have set as an organization to get to tackle and talk about in order for them. Uh, okay.
All right.
Yes, Ruben.
All right, I need to find out. Madam Namute, can you get us now?
Okay.
Okay, all right. Lance, one of the things that I've seen from this parliament, which is ongoing, this August parliament that is ongoing, is that we've got, for the first time in Zambia, a first female speaker, and also the first deputy speaker of parliament is also female. Something that we should be proud of for the first time in the history of the country. Uh, I hope the trend continues, and I also need we also want to see a lot of women coming in parliament, not just from in parliament. Also want to see a lot of councillors. Lands. Let's start from the ground. Most of the time when you are speaking of women representation, we only look at the top. Let's start also from the ground where the parliament the councillors is concerned. How many councils have female mayor or council chairperson? So we also need to check all that. I hope uh, women are going to fight also for those positions. That's where leadership starts from, Lance.
Yes, that's where leadership starts from. But Ruben, I have a sad experience. I think I'm one person that has been very active into politics or taking part in political activities where you will be doing PR for certain uh, people or for certain prominent political figures in political parties. One thing that you need to understand, or maybe one thing that we should get from this whole thing, is to say that even in political parties, it's very hard for these committees in political parties get to appoint a female as their chairman, youth chairman, as their provincial chairman, as their district chairman, or these other portfolios that may be there in the party. Most of the time, what you will see, like NAMUTE had put it, where we have Ministry of Gender and we have genderalized it to say this is a ministry only for females. Even in political parties, they've only taken the Women League is the only portfolio that a woman can have as chairperson or chair lead, okay, because it looks at the women folk. You will never see a national chairman who is a woman in political parties. So the quicker political parties get to realize that women can also do good in leadership and should be put in those key leadership positions, the better. This is a time where you would say kudos to New Heritage Party that has a female president. It was also kudos to FDD, or it's still kudos that has a female president. NDC that has Sawoi as a female president. Excuse me. These are parties that you would say they are trying their best. But again, in trying their best, they are failing. How are they failing? It's only that president who is female. The rest of the portfolios,
Yes, sir.
Bonse and Mamuna, Bebaliko. So, what picture are we trying to paint? If political parties do not change their mindset to um, start appreciating ladies, to start appreciating women and putting them in these key leadership positions, then we will also see it, you know, we'll also see it going or transiting to the national level because it started in the party. And when this party comes into power, even when you look at the appointments, they will also appoint many women in key positions because that is their party policy. So it starts from there, Ruben.
All right. Madam Janet, are you there now? All right. So, Lance, how can you sort out this issue? Should we put it in the constitution to say, okay, mu parliament, we need of all the 156, maybe this percentage, I don't know, 40% should be guaranteed for women, or maybe there's another system that you want us to employ?
Thank you so much, Ruben. This has to start from the political party. You know, political parties, when they are drafting up their manifestos or when they are putting across their policies, or the policy direction of how they want to run the party, the direction and the kind of leadership that they want to have in the party, they need to clearly categorize to say, in our party, it will be a 50-50. Okay, this should not only be a lip service, because many a times that we are given lip service and then in the actual sense it doesn't happen. So it should be that in a political party, or these political parties should have within their manifesto to say it is going to be 50-50 leadership, or kind of leadership in this party. And even when we form government, that is how it is going to be. So therefore, women should up their game in seeing to it that they vie for these positions. They work hard to get to these positions. Okay, that should be the case. That's how it's supposed to be done. If at the political party level that is not done, you don't do that, there is no way that in the in the national constitution, then you get to encrypt that. That will be that can be chaos, or that can be something which will haunt us sometime in future, because it will again be stepping on other things or other toes. So it's the political parties' agenda or role, or it's a must for political parties to go for 50-50 kind of leadership in the party, and their manifesto must also clearly state that this will also be the case when we form government, so that suffice that they form government, it will be easy for us to see women in being given those key government positions, or key roles, key decision-making positions in government, because it started from the party level, and then it has been upgraded to nation.
All right, Lance, our guest is here now. You can continue with the questions for.
Oh, okay. Welcome back, NAMUTE.
Oh, thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay, just a recap of my questions, so that maybe you can start from the top in answering it.
Okay.
So we have seen women not taking part in politics, or have decided to take a back bench in taking part into politics, because they have been given different tags. They've been called prostitutes. Sorry for that language, but that's what they've been called. They've been mudslinged. They've been badmouthed. Politics is a dirty game, they are told. So therefore, it's not an environment for a woman. Now, as women in governance, Zambia, what role, how do you hope to combat this challenge, so that we can see many female folks taking part into politics?
Okay, thank you very much. So I think, like I had mentioned before, with women in governance, Zambia, we believe in the grassroots, because it's less of I wouldn't want to call it a challenge, but it's easier when it's basically when you have a problem on the top or on the roots, on the leaves. The best way you can get rid of that problem is by uprooting the leaves, the roots themselves. So what Women in Governance Zambia, our first focal area is with the children. So what we do as Women in Governance Zambia to ensure that we get rid of that cultural barrier is to engage with young children, or with school pupils from grades 5 and above, in ensuring to tell them, not only even in regards to participation in governance, but even in career. So we do a lot of community sensitization programs with community schools that we have. around different areas. And the first thing that when I am part of the team that is going to that particular school is I always ask them a very simple question. When you look at me as a female and I'm standing in front of you pupils, what career do you think I carry? And most of them will always incline themselves with, we think you look like a nurse, or you look like a teacher, or female oriented careers. So that is our starting point. We want to see how young children look at different careers, and from there that's where we pick it up from. So the moment we now begin to open up, okay, no, I work in the lab, or I'm an engineer and I'm a female, or I'm a lawyer and I'm a female, that in itself we believe is a game changer. So we mostly focus on the young children. Then moving on, knowing that even the adolescents and the older people that we have still have their perception of women do not belong, whether in parliament or in decision-making positions, as they belong in the kitchen. So that's where we go and pick it up from in regards with the community, and we ensure to also make reference to good figures that we have in our country that are making very good progress, such as Ms. Ingamelu, who have worked on a number of projects. That in itself, that is a very good icon we can point out even when we're speaking to different people in different fields. And not only do we focus on the political sector, but we also focus in terms of career, in terms of sports as well. We have the female Zambian team that is doing quite something. We're now hearing more about it. So that in itself as well is a game changer in regards to changing the perception of what most people categorize as being politically inclined to only males as compared to females. Then as well, now dealing with the issue that is already at hand with people that are already in the government positions that are being bullied as well in regards of them being political prostitutes, which is very true, which I believe to probably sleep with someone in order for them to get to that position where they're at. So our focal area is the media, such as yourselves. So we are working closely with the media in order to ensure that they put out the right message as well, even as they speak or as they publicize different stories in regards to females that are in politics.
All right. So, Madam Janet, do you visit political parties to check on them, how they're doing as they're doing the nominations, or as they're doing their own conventions there or their conferences electing leaders, where you go in visit them to champion that also women should be given positions right from the political parties?
Okay, so as Women in Governance Zambia, in partnership with other organizations and also in partnership with National Youth Development Council, we had an engagement that was right before the elections, where we called different political parties and our current government to speak on inclusion of women, and in signing memorandums stating that they will actually put women into the particular government position. So yes, we did most of the interactions, but that was before elections. And as of now, I heard you mentioned, I'm not too sure if it was some other female presidents that we have, like Mrs. Kateka herself, who is a very calm person that we have interacted on a number of occasions. Equally the same even with Madam Savoy as well. We had a very good engagement on our previous activity that we had with Women in Governance Zambia, because we visited the prison, and it was a very, very good thing because we brought her through, and looking at her background of music, that in itself, it was an indication that even prisoners do relate to a certain extent, because before she even spoke to the inmates, she actually made them recall on some of the songs that she used to do. And apart from that, even gave them a message of hope as well, being female inmates and looking forward to be released on a particular day.
So women are actually doing good things, already women that are in government. But one thing that we lack is the ability to be able to research, because I do not know if it's just with me, but especially if you're a political figure, if you're mostly given opportunity to speak to different people, it's important to have accurate information, especially to do with the law, because that is a very sensitive issue. You cannot mislead a number of people dependent on a particular law that you're trying to lobby for. So if women are given an opportunity to have huge spaces, but as well, it is up to us, the women, to be able to research more and have accurate information to be able to disseminate. Even when I was coming for this particular platform, I had to make sure that I did the background search. If I'm going to speak on the NYDC Act, do I have the correct sections? Am I speaking about the correct act? Or if I'm going to talk about human rights, on which cornerstone am I basing it from? Are we looking at the Human Rights Declaration for the entire nations? Where exactly am I getting this information to be able to give different people on different platforms? So I think that in itself is very important.
All right. Thank you so much. I was hesitant to respond. I was hoping Ruben gets to come in. But quickly, NAMUTE, we still have a lot on our plate, and time is never a best ally. Let's talk about political violence and equality. When you talk about this, what exactly do you advocate for? And in that also, maybe you can include this line of thought. Don't you think that the name of your organization somehow limits you to only speaking for one part of society, which is the women folk only?
Okay, that's very true. I was starting especially with the last part that you mentioned, because most of the males actually would send us messages, would send me private messages, and some will actually call through and ask, "I'm a man, but I still want to participate. Am I able to do that?" So I think that should be entirely upon different women, and especially most of our members as women in governance Zambia, to advocate that the name itself does not only speak to women, but it speaks to the marginalized community. Women in governance Zambia just brings in to ensure that women as well can participate in governance. It's not only for the men that are able to do that. Then coming back to speaking to political violence, so that is something that women in governance also did face for quite some time, especially during the times of the campaign, where most women were scared because they do not even have the financial muscle itself, the financial muscle or the physical muscle to be able to... Hello?
Yeah, we can get you.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Yes, they did not have the financial muscle or the physical muscle to be able to succumb to political violence. So I think the same happens even when you have every problem, you uproot it from the roots, and the roots are the political party leaders themselves. Because if you have a leader who can speak against political violence on many platforms, it's easier even for the members or the followers to be able to succumb themselves. And not only that, this is why I think, like Ruben had mentioned, we have different arms of government. We do not only have the legislation, but we also have the judiciary and the executive, who are supposed to ensure that laws are abided. So this is where we now speak of independence. Every arm should be independent. This is why sometimes it is quite important to review certain laws that we adopt as a country, because for me, it does not sit well, and it's quite ridiculous for the president to be able to appoint judges. Already that in itself does not speak to the separation of power, because the president does not belong to the judiciary. So the judiciary should not be answerable to the executive. So that in itself just distorts the whole idea of separation of power. So I think if it starts from the laws themselves, from different policies that will speak against political violence, and especially we have the Electoral Commission Act. I'm sure most of different individuals do not know that if you commit a crime within times of elections, during the period of elections, and for example, I beat up somebody during election times, or I kill someone, and I decide to flee and I go to Malawi and I come back after a year, you cannot bring that case on me. So political crimes are only valid for 1 year, which is a very big lacuna, because we cannot have people committing crimes, and if they're not prosecuted within a year, then it becomes it's statute bad. You cannot prosecute someone after a year. So that in itself, like I had mentioned, if we want to have change, we need to look at the laws that we have. We do not need the idea of adopting laws and not looking through them to ensure that they work for the good of the people. So that can be one of the ways in which we can ensure that political violence is actually gotten rid of. And I think the last point that you had mentioned, was it human rights or equality?
Equality.
Okay. Yeah, so that is exactly as well one of our cornerstones as women in governance Zambia. We understand that most of the males are quite resilient. When we speak of women inclusion, they also want to be given an opportunity. But what women in governance Zambia in terms of equality talks about is, obviously, the strength I have cannot be compared to the strength that Ruben has, because of his nature, of his body structure compared to a woman's structure. So what we're trying to communicate is being given an equal opportunity. However, in being given an equal opportunity, not necessarily in stating that if Ruben is going to carry 3 bags of mealie on his head, Janet should also carry 3 bags of mealie. I do not know if we're getting on the same page there, but basically, as women in governance Zambia, that's what we focus on, where we are less privileged to be given an opportunity, especially because most of the people would ask, why are you only lobbying for the girl child? But when you look at our statistics, especially with the Data Collection Act and the Data Collection Body, women, the percentage of women or girls that drop out of school as compared to the number of girls that drop out, guys that drop out of school, is a very huge difference. It's more, I think it should be above 14% difference between the two genders. So that in itself, in ensuring that both genders are accorded an equal opportunity, it is quite pertinent that we focus more on the women or on the girl child sector, in order for them to have an equal opportunity of employment, an equal opportunity of a better life, ensuring that they also do participate in governance and leadership positions.
Well, NAMUTE, like I said, time is not our best ally. We will need to bring you back. The issue that you have raised of the number of girl child or children dropping out from school. There are certain statistics that I have and would like us to peruse through and talk about them. And of course, concerns also that have come in from other people, especially if we so much advocate for females only and leave out a boy child. But time is not our best ally. Thank you so much for this evening. Looking forward to having you again. We'll talk to the producer that at least we have you again anytime soon.
Yeah, that would be great.
All right, so thank you so much, Ruben, as well. Thank you so much for being a great co-host. This is where we have to wrap up the show this evening. Unfortunately, we cannot read your messages, but we still appreciate the time that you have taken to watch this special interview, which we featured Janet NAMUTE, who is the Executive Director for Women in Governance Zambia. Of course, make a date tomorrow as we bring to you yet another exciting edition of Meet Your Leaders. And just a gist, tomorrow we are hosting economist Chibamba Kanyama. Good evening, stay blessed, and continue keeping warm.